Okay, so we've reached the point where it doesn't matter if Meghan Markle is talking about her husband's military career or her latest flop was Never project.
Boring and basic. That describes basically every single Meghan Markle as ever ad. And the latest one is the worst among them.
There's a new Meghan video circulating this week, and calling it gross is actually the polite version of what the internet settled on.
If it's not about her, she doesn't really care. So here is as ever. It has slowly ticked up a little bit in the follower count, only by about 200. And she doesn't really care about his military career. She doesn't really care about him, I think. He was always just a means to an end. So she knows a little bit that he served in the military for 10 years, but she doesn't care enough to be specific that for part of it, he was a helicopter pilot. And
she's sitting in a garden, white outfit, headband, ice cream cone in hand, no jam, no spread, no as ever products of any kind, just Meghan alone, smiling at something off camera, eating plain vanilla ice cream. 30 seconds after she finished filming the promotional video for the as ever raspberry spread she wants you to buy. Read that back.
Boring and basic. That describes basically every single Meghan Markle as ever ad. And the latest one is the worst among them because Meghan is showing you this ice cream. First, she makes it in a sundae, and then she has a totally unrelated ice cream to her products in a cone. And she's attempting to sell spread with ice cream in the most boring and basic way ever. It's like putting jam on a croissant. The woman does not know how to sell. And this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. As ever, continues to run out of steam. It is stalling. It is stagnating. And Meghan Markle, unfortunately, she's not the one to bring this thing home. She's not the one to elevate this brand. Because Meghan Markle, at her very core, is a boring and basic person with boring and basic products that she doesn't know how to actually make you go to the website and buy as much of it as you can because it's so amazing. Because Meghan Markle doesn't know how to make it look amazing.
The pitch landed in inboxes earlier this week. A summer treat. A simple sundae. Ice cream topped with as ever raspberry spread, crumbled shortbread, a few of her signature flour sprinkles, the lifestyle brand doing what the lifestyle brand does. And then, in the same video, she's outside with the dog. Same outfit, same headband, different ice cream, plain cone, no spread, no as ever anything, smiling at it like it's the star of the show. The internet noticed immediately. One commenter asked who exactly she's celebrating with, given she's alone with a dog in every single one of these clips. Another called the whole thing sad and desperate. A third pointed out the obvious continuity problem. She makes an elaborate sundae, then poses with a completely different cone that has none of the products she's supposedly selling. And one that really landed, she's still trying to sell whimsy, and people simply don't find her whimsical.
Instead, it turned into one of those moments where you watch the reaction roll in and think, someone in that house needs to start pre-testing content with actual humans before it goes live. So the video shows Meghan in her garden with her dog Mia, assembling what's billed as her favorite summer dessert. She spreads her own as ever raspberry jam onto a scoop of vanilla ice cream, adds crumbles shortbread, tops it with her now signature flower sprinkles, the dead flowers that we have seen so many times. Product placement dressed up as a lifestyle moment, which fine, and that's the whole business model still. But the problem wasn't the concept. The problem was the execution, because somewhere in the edit, she ends up holding a plain ice cream cone with absolutely none of her own product on it, smiling at it like it's the star of the show. And of course...
Which is exactly right. And here's the thing about that reaction. It's not really about a cone or a flower sprinkle. It's about pattern recognition. People have now watched years of this exact format. Woman alone in a garden performing a domestic moment for a camera, selling a product through vibes rather than any sort of substance. When the format worked, it felt aspirational. It doesn't feel aspirational anymore. It feels like someone narrating their own isolation and calling it content.
Okay, so we've reached the point where it doesn't matter if Meghan Markle is talking about her husband's military career or her latest flop was Never project. We're actually every single utterance is just a flat out distortion or lie. So take this latest video where she is trying to convince us that the best way to consume an ice cream sundae this summer is with her very unappetizing runny spread. Then to get the headlines, Meghan, of course, had to include some video, some imagery of her with her own dog, where guess what? She's eating an ice cream without the spread that she is trying to promote. It's actually unbelievable.
But the ice cream video isn't the headline this week. Not really. Because while everyone was focusing on the sundae, something else got caught at the Cookie Queen's event. Meghan, in front of an audience, invoking her husband, as she does. He was a helicopter pilot in the British Army for 10 years, she said.
But funny enough, I was thinking about something my husband told me ages ago. We all go through experiences, and life is full of surprises. But he was a helicopter pilot in the British Army for 10 years. And sometimes on really hard days, I remember once he said, but my love, even if there's a storm happening, above the storm, the sun's always shining. And that's a perspective that only comes when you think about zooming out a little bit. So I think when you really zoom out and think, my gosh, how many things have we gone that felt hard and then you still get through them? Or how many goals did you think you're not going to hit and then you hit them and you supersede them? So it's so important to maintain that perspective that no matter what feels insurmountable, there's just always that sun shining above it.
Move over, Oscar Wilde. Who needs your prose when Prince Harry's in town? Princess Carparkle again. This is hilarious. First, Harry was not a helicopter pilot for 10 years. He completed his co-pilot qualifications in 2012, qualified as an Apache commander in July 2013, and retired in January 14.
And sometimes on really hard days, he'd say, my love, even if there's a storm, above the storm, the sun's always shining. Sweet quote. Wrong timeline, wrong everything. Harry was a helicopter pilot for approximately 2 years. He completed co-pilot qualifications in 2012, qualified as an Apache commander in July 2013. Left the Army in 2015 as a pilot, specifically 2 years.
So I don't know where she's getting 10 years. Also, did she supersede her goals or did she surpass her goals? According to Taz Riddle Me This, Meghan has said Harry was a pilot for 10 years in the army. He qualified in 2012 as an Apache co-pilot. He left Afghanistan January 2013, then obtained his commander license in July 2013 and then quit the army June 2015. Outside of Afghanistan, Harry hasn't been photographed or videoed anywhere near a cockpit or flying any type of aircraft since. Harry Meghan's spare added, get your puke buckets out, ladies and gents. Another cringe lie spewed by the professional victim. She really needs to stop saying, my love, in a professional setting. It makes her look more lame than she already is, as if that is possible. So we've got two things going on here. Firstly, and I know this, I covered it all at the time, Harry was only a pilot for 2 years. So Meghan has literally extended his service in a helicopter as a helicopter pilot 5 times, okay? Which I think...
She multiplied it by 5. That is not a rounding error. That is a completely different career. And this isn't isolated. Sources close to the situation are pointing out this isn't the first time she's attributed a quote to Harry that reportedly didn't come from Harry. Earlier this year, she praised him with a line best known from Spider-Man. Not paraphrased, the line. The New York Post reported it at the time.
We did another quote to her love Harry at the Cookie Queen's event. Where else has Meghan done that before? Oh, look at this. Do you remember this quote? With fame comes opportunity, but it also includes responsibility to advocate and share, to focus less on glass slippers and more on pushing through glass ceilings. And if I'm lucky enough to inspire. Now, the New York Post reported that she was praising Prince Harry with a quote best known from Spider-Man. But as Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, pointed out, this is a mess of a promotional tour anyway. Meghan chose this movie only because she was a Girl Scout 40 years ago, and it's evident in every answer because they all circle back to her. This is why she is not a good creative. She can't see beyond herself. We'll see how this movie does, but I'm sensing a bomb. And
So the question isn't just whether she got the dates wrong. The question is whether the quote existed at all. Whether Harry said, "My love, above the storm the sun is always shining" to his wife during a hard day in the army, or whether she read something somewhere, spun it into a story and inserted him into it because it served the moment. Anyone watching this is thinking the same thing. Here's the thing. If you genuinely care about someone's career, you know the details. You know the years. You don't accidentally extend someone's active flying service by 8 years. According to multiple accounts, she doesn't actually discuss Harry's military service with him in any depth, because it was never the point. The point, reportedly, was always the access, the title, the platform. Harry wasn't a chapter in her story, he was the preface.
really know that much because she's just not bothered by it.
She really is not, Dan, because Meghan just has, if it's not about her, she doesn't really care. And she actually even made another flub in that quote by saying that Harry said, "My love." Meghan uses that term. I don't think I've ever heard Harry use that term, "my love." It's a very, I feel like, feminine term. And obviously Harry's been very much feminized by Meghan. But that term as well is one that Meghan would use. So she is attempting to use Harry to justify this inane quote.
Now, while all of this was unfolding, a second story was running in parallel, and it tells you considerably more than the ice cream video does. The Daily Mirror's front page this week carried a headline worth reading slowly. Harry, Dad, let the world see us together. Sources described as close to the Duke say Harry is hoping King Charles will attend next year's Invictus Games in Birmingham. Not agreed to, not confirmed, just briefed. To a newspaper, publicly.
And she doesn't really care about his military career. She doesn't really care about him, I think. He was always just a means to an end. So she knows a little bit that he served in the military for 10 years, but she doesn't care enough to be specific that for part of it, he was a helicopter pilot. And again, I doubt Harry actually gave her that quote. I'm sure she read it somewhere and spun it into a story that serves her, because that's what Meghan does. And this is why she's failed so spectacularly on the international stage, is because she constantly is stealing from people. She constantly is taking ideas from people, and she is spinning narratives constantly. Obviously, it includes a lot of lies, a lot of exaggeration in order to puff herself up. And I think it's really been detrimental to her business, to her career, and she can't stop doing it. And it's just so incredibly obvious that her and Harry are not on the same page in a lot of ways, and that she doesn't really take the time to actually get to know her husband, because he was just there to help her get more rich and successful.
Reports also surfaced that Harry's popularity has, and this word was actually used, astonishingly risen following his recent visit with the family. Astonishingly. Nobody uses that word unless the actual polling movement is small enough that it needs dramatic packaging to look like a headline. Popularity built on a single family dinner is not popularity. That's a sugar rush.
Brittany, then today, and this is the other big piece of breaking news, we have an extraordinary new campaign. I am now describing this as Harry's re-entry campaign. And I would compare it to the sort of campaign that Mark Bolan, the previous communications chief for then Prince Charles, waged to try and get the MSM in the United Kingdom to accept now Queen Camilla. Because we see this playing out on the front page of today's Daily Mirror newspaper. What a headline, Brittany. Harry, Dad, let the world see us together. And this is a remarkable piece of Sussex spin, leaked directly to Russell Myers, he of the Royal Rota, really attempting to bully King Charles into appearing at the Invictus Games. And the thing is, Brittany, as part of Operation Thor,
It's the kind of number that spikes because a story briefly made someone sympathetic on a slow news day, and evaporates the moment the next unflattering headline lands, which, given this week alone, took approximately 48 hours. So who exactly wanted this astonishingly popular story to exist this week specifically? And why was it time to land in the same news cycle as the reconciliation-adjacent family reunion story? Coincidence? Apparently.
this is becoming just incessant. Like, it's completely impossible now for the king and his team to avoid this. And of course, by the way, that is not me giving the king and his team a pass, because if the king had just stayed firm and had said, no, there's absolutely no chance of half in or half out, they wouldn't be waging this war in the media because there'd be no point. But here's the very, very PR-spun reporting from Russell Myers, royal editor of the Daily Mirror, who writes, Prince Harry is hoping for a public reunion with the King at next year's Invictus Games. If the monarch were to accept an invitation to appear at the event in Birmingham next summer, it could pave the way for the monarch and his estranged son to appear in public together for the first time in years, signalling a major shift in relations between the pair. Now, this is often what you'll see Harry do, by the way. There's no indication at this stage that the King has agreed to this, but it's like, if you just talk about it enough.
Here's what this Invictus campaign actually is, and why sources suggest the palace hasn't fully understood the trap it's walking into. It's been described as a twofold motive. That's generous. The correct term is a no-lose motive. If Charles attends, it's framed as healing. Harry's in the photographs. The reconciliation narrative belongs entirely to Harry, who arranged it. If Charles doesn't attend, the framing is already built in advance, ready to deploy. Evidence that reconciliation efforts are one-sided. Poor Harry. He tried. His father refused. The palace literally cannot respond without handing Harry the story he wants.
Describing his motive as twofold. Well, the twofold is generous, but bear with me. Let's call it what it looks like from the outside. A public wish delivered through friendly media, asking for the one thing that would generate maximum reconciliation optics with a minimum actual effort from Harry himself. So think about what's actually being asked here. No, not a private conversation, not quiet invitation extended through normal family channels. No, that is a story plays with outlets and photos about how much Harry wants his father there, phrased in exactly the way that turns a personal request into a public test of the King's affection. If Charles attends, it's framed as healing. If Charles doesn't attend, the framing is already built in advance, ready to be deployed as evidence that reconciliation efforts are one-sided. Poor Harry!
And it's the same instinct that's shown up again and again since the move to California. Manufacture the emotional stakes publicly first. Then let the family's actual response get measured against a narrative Harry got to write himself. This is textbook. The formula hasn't changed. But there's a detail buried inside the reporting that nobody is discussing loudly enough. One insider said Harry's desire to have his father at the Invictus Games serves a dual purpose. Having the King's public support would, according to multiple accounts, add considerable weight to his argument for security for his family when visiting the UK. There it is.
Is because once he receives the RAVIC security, he will be protected in whatever country he is around the world, never having to pay that bill, and immediately that saves $3 million in private security costs that he is shelling out every single year. The Russell Myers report goes on. Harry is due to return to London for the annual Well Child Awards in September, the charity he has supported for 15 years. It is understood, and this is basically just confirming what we saw in the Sun newspaper last week, that he will accept an offer from his father, the King, to stay at Buckingham Palace when he returns to Britain, marking a stunning turnaround from the last time he was in the UK. The Mirror revealed earlier this month that Harry is to continue his controversial campaign demanding taxpayer-funded security, paving the way for future visits with his family. So again, this is extraordinary to me.
The Dad Let the World See Us Together headline. The warm reconciliation framing. The Invictus invitation. Reportedly, part of the strategy is about securing royally funded protection, which would save somewhere in the region of $3 million annually in private security costs. That's the thing they're not saying out loud. And here's why this is going to matter, because something else broke through this week from an unexpected corner. A television presenter went on air and simply said the quiet part out loud, calling Harry and Meghan insufferable during a discussion about the financial fallout from Harry's failed legal action against a British tabloid publisher. No hedging, no diplomatic qualifier, just the word that a lot of people have been thinking for a while now.
Week from an unexpected corner. A television presenter went on air and simply said, yeah, the quiet part out loud, branding Harry and Meghan insufferable during a discussion about the fallout from Harry's failed legal action against a British tabloid publisher. So the remarks came during a broadcast segment focused on the financial consequences of that lawsuit, and the presenter didn't hedge. His point, in essence, was that Harry's ongoing legal battles and constant public profile have left the couple increasingly out of step with the public opinion. But that word, insufferable, is doing something that the astonishingly popular headline can't undo.
And that one word did something that the astonishingly popular headline couldn't undo. Because insufferable is the honest read from someone with no reconciliation narrative to protect. It's a broadcaster looking at the totality of the last several years. The lawsuits, the interviews, the documentaries, the constant low hum of grievance, and concluding that the audience has simply run out of patience.
200. So the critical thing about Meghan, I think, when looking at her numbers here, and obviously this is the case for some people sometimes, is that her numbers aren't ticking upwards generally. Like, she should have at this point, let's say 1 million followers, but she's stuck at about 880 something. She's gotten as high as 886, and then she has gotten as low in this period as 878, 77. So she's kind of just staying there and staying stagnant. She's not growing. She's not developing. People have gotten what she's wanted to give, and then they're not going anywhere else.
The As Ever follow account tells the same story. According to multiple observers who've been tracking it closely, the account has barely moved in months, hovering somewhere between 877,000 and 886,000. For a brand this media saturated, those numbers should be pushing 1 million. They're not growing. On brand, by the way. Here's what happens next. This is a prediction, and sources suggest it's fairly predictable at this point. Given the run of bad press this week, watch for a charity appearance surfacing within the next 2 weeks. Maybe a surprise visit somewhere. Maybe a quiet video about a cause close to the heart. Maybe Harry turns up somewhere photogenic with children in matching t-shirts. Now, nothing wrong with charity, obviously. That's not the point. The point is the pattern. Every time the criticism piles up past a certain threshold, a warm, camera-ready moment of generosity appears right on schedule. Timed just well enough to reset the conversation before the previous story finishes doing damage. It is not cynicism to notice a pattern. It's just doing the numbers.
Oh, here's a prediction, and you can hold me to it. Given the run of bad press this week, I would put real money on a charity appearance surfacing within the next week or two. Maybe a surprise visit somewhere. Maybe a quiet video about a cause close to Meghan's heart. Maybe Harry turns up somewhere photogenic with children in matching t-shirts. Now, nothing wrong with charity, obviously, that's not the point. The point is the pattern. Every time the criticism piles up past a certain threshold, warm, camera-ready moment of generosity appears right on schedule, time just well enough to reset the conversation before the previous story finishes doing damage. It is not cynicism to notice a pattern. It's just doing the numbers.
So here's where everything actually stands. An ice cream video that became a case study in how far the goodwill has eroded. A product promotion where the person promoting it wasn't even using the product. A fabricated timeline for a husband's military career delivered at a public event, prepared in advance. A popularity claim that needed the word astonishingly to sound believable. An Invictus campaign framed as reconciliation but structured according to multiple accounts. So the palace cannot respond without losing. And a television presenter willing to say what a lot of people have been thinking for a very long time. None of it changes, it just becomes more visible.
So let's take stock of where we actually are. I gross out the sort of video that's become a case study in how far the goodwill has eroded. A popularity claim that needs an adverb to sound credible. A charity's flagship event has been used as leverage in a family relationship, and a television host willing to say what a lot of people have been thinking for a while now. So whatever comes next, and I promise you, something photogenic and charitable is coming, none of it changes what this week actually revealed. I'm sure this is not the last time we hear about a rift, a reconciliation attempt, or a carefully timed popularity headline. If anything, expect the redemption tour to start any day now. So let me know what you think in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue.
The questions that remain are the ones worth sitting with. If the products are as good as she says, why isn't she eating them? If the quotes are as meaningful as she presents them, why doesn't she know who actually said them? And if the Invictus campaign is genuinely about healing, not leverage, not security costs, why is the invitation being extended through a newspaper's front page before any private conversation has happened? Some questions answer themselves. What do you think is actually driving this? The Invictus push, the as ever stumbles, all of it? Drop it in the comments. If you found this useful, like and subscribe. There's considerably more of this to come.